Hey, welcome to today's live stream. Lots of things to talk about in the world so we can stay aware and awake and make sure that we don't get caught up in some more Hegelian dialectics. We know that's their favorite game. That's really that's the only game they have, to be quite honest. Things are falling over all of a sudden here. Let's talk about I got to talk about the border. We got two topics: the border crisis and also what's happening in Georgia. And I'm going to share we're going to look at some videos and we're going to talk about this. But this border crisis thing hit me as just basically absurd, to be quite honest. And let's jump in and talk about it a little bit here. So I've got a video queued up from Fox, and let's play it and let's talk about it here.
All right, everybody knows that if you do carry, the most important thing to be able to do with your gun is actually put a round on target.
All right.
The letter here tells the tale. Hello, I'm John Roberts in Washington. You believe this, Sandra?
Which means they are here, and this is just an unbelievable development. I'm Sandra Smith in New York. Good to be with you, John. This is America Reports. Let's get right to Bill Malugin. He's got this news for us. He's live out of Douglas, Arizona right now, where Vice President Kamala Harris is set to visit.
This is a very recent video from Fox 2 days ago about the border.
Here this afternoon. Bill, the details of this news. What do you have?
Yeah, and Sandra, bear with me. We just got these numbers moments ago, but it's a jaw dropper to say the least. So to set the stage here, let me just explain what these numbers mean. ICE has something called a non-detained docket. Essentially what that is it means migrants who were encountered by DHS but are no longer in federal custody. So who's on this non-detained docket? It's illegal immigrants who were caught and released at the border, released with the court date years away. They're in immigration proceedings, combined with illegal immigrants who have already been ordered deported from the country by a judge, but are still here roaming the country. So keep that in mind, this non-detained docket. According to a letter that the acting director of ICE just sent to Texas Congressman Tony Gonzalez, on ICE's non-detained docket, they're currently tracking 425,000 non-citizens who have been convicted of a crime. Of that number, over 13,000 non-citizens have convictions for homicide and are on the non-detained docket, meaning they're roaming the country right now. On top of that, there are another 15,000.
Let's stop there for a moment. Do you see the fear-mongering? See, this is Fox. I never watched the media during COVID times until about 2022. And when I turned it on for the short little blip that I saw, it was the worst fear-mongering I'd ever seen. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen. I mean, I hadn't watched news for like 15 years. I don't pay attention to it. The worst fear-mongering I've ever seen. This smacks of that. If you follow me on social media at GMarkPhillips, I've shared a number of posts about the Hegelian dialectic being that's their only game in town, right? Problem, reaction, solution. Yes, this is frustrating to Americans, and it's even frustrating to me. But when I pull back and look at how they manipulate us, and they use that Hegelian dialectic to they're poking the problem right now. They're stoking the fire big time right here. And I'm not saying that there might not be people coming across the border, but if you go back to COVID times, was it really as bad as they said it was? And what are those things really happening? That's the $100,000 question. All Americans have to come to the conclusion for themselves. Let's continue here.
1,811 non-citizens convicted of sexual assault who are roaming the country right now on ICE's non-detained docket. It doesn't stop there. Those are convictions. The ICE director also says there are currently just under 1,900 non-citizens on the non-detained docket who have pending homicide charges who are roaming the country, and another 4,250 non-citizens who have pending sexual assault charges who are roaming the country on the non-detained docket. So people's eyes might be glazing over right now with all the numbers we just threw at you. Just to put it in a nutshell right here, what we've learned from the acting ICE director via this letter to Congressman Tony Gonzalez is right now there are over 13,000 illegal aliens convicted of homicide who are roaming the United States right now. There are another 15,811 illegal aliens roaming the country right now who have been convicted of sexual assault. And there are even more who are facing charges for homicide and charges for sexual assault. So this just goes to show, guys, the non-detained docket has exploded under the Biden administration to over, I believe it's 7.3 million. They're anticipating it could hit 8 million by the end of the year. But looking at the numbers on this letter right here, there are currently over 600,000 non-citizens on ICE's non-detained docket who are either convicted, or 600,000 non-citizens on this non-detained docket who are roaming the country right now. Of that, 425,000 have already been convicted of crimes. 222,000 are pending crimes. And again, the most serious crimes we just told you about, over 13,000 convicted of homicide, over 15,000 convicted.
If this is true, and this is why I've totally given up on the government. I mean, WTF if it is true. If it's not, and if it's a ploy to get us scared and reactionary and willing to accept whatever new solution that they want to impose on us for more control, more surveillance, more ability to lock down and put the screws in whenever they want, just like happened after that event in early 2000s that you can't talk about, or you'll get the little ticker down at the bottom. I also get a lot of information from James Corbett, and he has a video, a series one of his deep dives into the executive order that Donald Trump signed early on in his presidency that paved the way for biometric scans and enhanced border security. And even Donald Trump has floated the idea out there and said, hey, if I get back in, we're going to do digital IDs, all these digital things. We're going to get you, but did he say that? I don't know if he said that, but he said something to the effect that alluded to just how far he will go, to get these things out. And I can just see Americans who are caught up into the Hegelian dialectic of all this going, yeah, I will give up a lot of my rights for whatever you want to do, Gov, even though they're the ones who are causing this or are creating the illusion that it's happening. Right? Creating the illusion of it's happening. A lot of these things, they don't even have to cause anything. They just have to give an illusion that's happening. I even have questions about what exactly is happening in Israel and Gaza, right? Why are we seeing so much this stuff on the media? If our government did not want us to see this, like all of the heinous crimes against humanity and meddling in the affairs of foreign countries for like 50, 60 years that the CIA has been doing, making sure that they have people in positions of power in those countries that will do the bidding of the people who really run our country. If our news did not want us to see that, we don't see it, and we haven't seen it. I'm super skeptical whenever I see something on mainstream media because I know this is their main manipulation tactic, right? You control the information, you control the minds, you control the perception, you control what people believe about the world, and I'm over it, right? Let's continue and see what they say.
Of sexual assault. And honestly, that is not a surprise to hear given these horrible headlines we keep seeing popping up in multiple parts of the country almost every day now of a horrible sexual assault or a murder or another violent felony committed.
They're stoking the fire.
By an illegal alien who is often caught and released from custody. And the jaw dropper here too, guys, is all these numbers we just rattled off, they don't even account for the nearly 2 million gotaways who have crossed our border under the Biden administration. Those almost 2 million gotaways, they were never encountered by DHS. They snuck in, they were never caught.
It feels like a big good cop, bad cop routine. Donald Trump being the quote unquote good cop and Biden being the bad cop. It's weird. It's weird how they mess with us. But again, you don't see it until you pull back and take yourself completely out of the situation and stop the media. And then you look at it and you see, oh, you guys are playing with people's emotions.
By Border Patrol, they were never encountered by ICE. There's no record of them. So they have nothing to do with the numbers I just rattled off to you. These are just the numbers of people that ICE has already encountered, that Border Patrol has encountered, that DHS knows who they are. And we just saw those horrible stories in Nantucket the other day. ICE ran a week-long operation in Nantucket, and in a single operation in a 48-hour span, they arrested 2 Salvadoran illegal aliens who came into the country as gotaways and were arrested for child rape on Nantucket. They got a Brazilian guy who was arrested for sexually assaulting a Nantucket resident, and then a Guatemalan guy who was previously deported who was arrested for sexually assaulting a Nantucket resident. So we keep seeing all these headlines about migrant crime popping up in different cities all over the country. This right here is the first time we have ever seen specific numbers as to who and what ICE is tracking when it comes to convicted criminals who have crossed the border at some point and are either supposed to be deported or are going through their immigration proceedings, but are not in ICE custody right now and are roaming the country. So I'll ping it back to you guys, but some pretty jaw-dropping numbers that we are still going.
All right, we get the idea. Fear mongering. What do we know? We'll never really know the truth because these people, they can't be trusted to tell the truth. But my point is this: I just wanted to talk about that in the relationship to the Hegelian dialectic, in relationship to what they want. We know they want always more power and control over us, more money, power, and control. And so every time I hear a story like that, I just think back again what James Corbett said. Hey, do you know everything that happens? They always end up putting forth a bill or some kind of a thing that allows them to surveil U.S. citizens more or lock us down or, whatever else they want to do. But anyway, let's talk about this fire in Georgia. Again, super sketchy, super hard to watch because of all the, environmental mess that's going on. I follow this gal on Instagram and her handle is Still Shining Bitches. She calls herself a professional dot connector. I like her. Still Shining Bitches. I started following her during COVID times. She is no joke. Let's see here. She's got this video. Let's see. It's like black and red smoke. It's wild. That's crazy. And I guess it's Converse, Georgia. Dude, that's wild.
It's getting worse. They're not putting that fire out. They're not.
And maybe they can't put it out. Let's look and see what they say about that fire. Georgia fire. AP News says over 90,000 Georgia residents taking shelter after chemical fire as haze spread and smells spread across Atlanta. Yeah, Conyers, Georgia. Massive plume of dark smoke. Yeah, it looked horrific. It's just weird. It's just weird that we have all these weird things going on, right? The ship crashing into the thing. I mean, the best practice for everyone sheltering is in place. The best practice is to turn the air conditioner off and keep windows and doors shut. Okay, just hang out in there. Latest plume modeling indicates it moving to the northeast, which is clearly not, Okay. So ridiculous. It's wild. It's like it's like a super environmental disaster. I don't know. Lots of weird things happening in the world. And, let me share some resources with you, and I'll talk about some of the things I'm going to talk about in the future coming up too. I just spent, a few minutes this morning listening to a 12 ways to stay ahead of the New World Order, something I got from a Instagram account that I follow, and there's some good stuff in there. Things we know about, like, don't drink the water, don't eat, or only eat organic food. What's some other things? I don't have the list in front of me, but I'm going to be probably sharing. Well, actually, I have it right here. Stay vigilant. Cut out the news. We know it's super depressing and super, it's mind control. It's mind control. Detoxification is huge. I'm going to be sharing this whole list along with another article that I came across a while ago. I think that article is in the Great Awakening Guide at greatawakeningguide.com. You can check it out. But this is what I like. There's a number of ways we have the power. We're not powerless in this situation. And this is why I get frustrated with people sometimes with giving their attention to the news. Now, I know we're watching the news there as a commentary and critical thing, but why would you ever sit and watch it just to get information? It's never about information. It's always about mind control and manipulation. That's what I have to assume because what I know, right? The CIA has admitted, this was in the 70s. They admitted we have people in media, right? And so as soon as they tell me that, I'm never going to watch them ever again, because I don't want to put myself in a situation that I'm potentially exploited, right? This is our most precious asset, we can either use it to enslave ourselves and weaken ourselves, or, like I talk about in One Life, we can use it to create better experiences in all areas of our life. By what are we focusing on, right? Yes, there are situations happening in the world, and I'm not anymore in the mindset of like the New Age movement of, think about love and light and focus on the positive. I'm past that, because I see that as being a psyop as well. If you focus on the positive and you never call out evil and call out the lies and deception of the enemy, and you just focus on positive, you're only playing at minimum half the battle, right? I now look at it in a different sense. You have to do both. You have to, there's two fronts, right? You have to expose the lies and deception so that other people can then talk about them, right? You talk about it, expose the lies and deception. Maybe people don't know. That's why I say I learn a lot from James Corbett. Maybe something I say sparks something in you. I get information from other people all the time, but we have to do two things: expose the lies and deception, and also focus on the world that we want to create. We can't just do one. It takes both. And I think about what Buckminster Fuller says a lot, even though it's challenging, because when you're in this, I feel we are in a psychological / spiritual war. It's an information war. But I also think about what Buckminster Fuller said, and he said that you don't destroy the old by fighting it directly. You destroy the old by creating a new system, a new something that's better and makes the other obsolete, right? And that's the second half of it. But you do have to make people aware. I always think of it like this. If you're walking on a path with someone else and you're in front, and you're walking down a nature path with someone and they're right behind you, and you come across a branch that's like right here, going to smack them in the head if they don't pay attention to it, and they're maybe looking at the scenery over here. The prudent thing to do as a human being is you're going to say, hey, watch out for this branch. It's right here, and you might not have seen it. And then they may go, oh yeah, I didn't see that. Thank you for telling me. Or watch out for this thing on the ground so you don't trip, right? That's all it is. Watch out for those pharmaceutical companies, because they have a long history of making fraudulent, misleading claims about their products and services. Purdue Pharma has been disbanded because of the fines. The fines were so heavy that they were disbanded. They can no longer operate. But on their website, it says to the effect of, oh yeah, we're going to regroup and we're going to help humanity out and we're going to blah, 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 all the spin, right? Johnson & Johnson recently had a major fine for their baby powder, right? Some people don't know about these things, right? And if we don't share the information that we have, thank God for the people that are sharing the information with us. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is one of the biggest sharers, right? He's been fighting, and his Children's Defense Fund has been fighting and for information and for accountability for these people for decades. And many of the people that he's fighting against our government. Anthony Fauci, they're stonewalling him. They're, not providing him with the information that he's requested, the supposedly free information, freedom of information. Thank God for people out there sharing this stuff and doing the research, and people like Abby Martin and, Ken O'Keefe. These people are putting themselves in harm's way to help us stay safe. And now we don't have a choice. And still, I just hope people are getting involved and looking into it, because it's not going to get better. You don't turn a blind eye, and you don't hope and pray anymore. There's no more hoping and praying, right? I still have people in my life that I love that are in the hope and pray mode, and I'm not in that mode anymore. I don't think it ever worked, right? Let's put it this way. It's a factor. It's a component. But again, expose the evil, shine the light of awareness on the deception, speak the truth, share the truth, talk about the game plans. Like, again, if the war is multifaceted and multi-layered, psychological, emotional, spiritual, financial, then you got to get in there and work on all those levels. They're highly sophisticated. That's why I say, when you see a news show like this and you don't know what the Hegelian dialectic is, and you hadn't listened to James Corbett video, and I wish I had the exact video that was. It was sometime from like October of 2023, like last year. If you hadn't listened to that and hadn't seen his deep dive, thank God for James Corbett doing these deep dives and going into all this detail about what's happening at the border. You might not have known what the game plan is, right? There's so many things going on behind the scenes that, thank God for these people that are sharing the truth. And like I said, you can get access to all of this, all the best resources, all in one place at the Great Awakening, greatawakeningguide.com. It's called The Great Awakening Guide. It's a downloadable PDF. It's totally free, and you don't even have to enter an email. Just go pick it up and get it, and then start plowing through those, because that's the only way we're going to come through this, is if the majority of us has knowledge and information, right? It's an information war. Knowledge is the way they enslave us, but it's also the way we break free from the enslavement. And turning a blind eye or handing over the responsibility to our representatives, and I'm just as guilty. It's not going to work anymore. That doesn't get the job done. We're almost near end game. We're heading into the end game because things are getting more weird. And they seem to be getting more desperate. And they seem to be pushing a lot of this bullshit, a lot of these news stories. They seem to be pushing fear a lot more. And my prayer for humanity is that people wake up and go, oh, we're on to your game now. We know exactly what you were doing, because we watched all those documentaries in the Great Awakening Guide. Movies like the Thrive movies 1 and 2, movies like RFK Jr.'s documentary about Anthony Fauci, right? You pick up little pieces in there all the time. My top 3 are Everything is a Rich Man's Trick. That's on YouTube. It's like 3 hours long, phenomenal. And I'll tell you why I believe it's phenomenal here in a moment. All Wars Are Bankers' Wars. That's an hour-long documentary, phenomenal. And the last one that I recommend is The Mystery of Israel at stopworldcontrol.com. The reason I recommend Everything is a Rich Man's Trick isn't because maybe of the content, but it's of the idea. It was very profound to me as I watched that documentary. And the idea, the overarching idea is this. If you look back through history, probably all events were manipulated or manufactured by rich men, bad rich men, because I always make the distinction. There are good rich men and women, and there are bad rich men and women. In the fallen world where they use money to rule us, that's who has a lot of money, right? Central bankers have a lot of money. I don't care how much money anyone working on Team God has. Central bankers have more, because again, in the fallen world of lies and deception, they're able to deceive a lot of people, and they've captured a lot of money. And so these rich men, these bad rich men, do ploys to deceive people and get more money. That's how they grow their wealth, right? They're not doing it in honorable, honest ways. They're doing it through lies and deception, right? And because they're so far above the system, no one can get them. This is why it's up to us to wake up, do our own research, and pull ourselves out of the system. No one's going to save us, right? These politicians are all on the dole. All of them. We have to assume that, right? The media is all on the dole. Robert F. Kennedy again talked about this years ago. This is like 9 years ago. He said, yeah, all these media companies are owned by like 6 corporations. I think it was 6 corporations or 9. I can't remember how many, but it's very few. As we move toward what they want, a one world government, you're going to have a one place to shop, one money system, one government system, one religious system. No, I don't like my current government. I think they're incompetent buffoons at best and super evil and corrupt at worst. So no way I would want a one world government. I don't care who's running it, right? I don't care who's running it. Any sensible person would look at it and go, why would you want that? Right? It's all BS. But we've got to get ourselves out of harm's way by becoming self-reliant and insulating ourselves from these clowns. And they're never going to fix it and never going to change, because for them to fix it and change, they're going to have to put their heads on the chopping block, and they're never going to do that, right? The people that are pulling the strings are way above the law, so to speak, and the people that are running our government are above the law, and they're going to be in deep, you know what, when humanity wakes up. I have to be optimistic because I don't have any other choice. I'm not going to even contemplate living in a world where these clowns have total and complete control over us. I won't live there. That's why I speak out and share this information and put together these guides and stuff like that. I'm not living in that world, right? I'm done with those clowns. I've seen what they've done. I've seen the corruption. They all have mansions on the ocean. They all have private security. They all have miraculously super timing stock trades. They continually lie to the American public. They do sketchy things in their free time. They're sketchy people, all of them. So I'm never going to live in a world where I give them more power. That's why I don't listen to them. That's why I don't pay attention to them. And that's why I expose them whenever I can. All right. Now that's for the bad news. Let's talk a little bit about One Life. One Life it's a system and a guide for living the life that God created for you to live, for all of us to live. I've been using this myself. I use this myself. This is a tool that I created so that I can know my purpose and my mission in life and do my mission and my purpose every single day, because that's how we win. The beast system and the media circus and the bread and circuses, they want to continually distract us. It is the primary tool that evil people use to distract us from doing our purpose and our mission in life. Doing our mission and purpose in life is how we win this spiritual war. And that is, why did God create you? What are your gifts and talents? And then how can you employ them in the service of humanity? The beast system's breaking down, right? They've ran it into the ground, and they put it under they really throw capitalism under the bus, when it's not capitalism that's bad, it's corruption that's bad, right? Creating things of value and owning things of value are how wealth is created. That's how they made their value, through businesses and real estate and etc. This can either be a hell on earth or a heaven on earth. It's totally up to us, because they use lies and deception to basically, play the game in a dishonorable way. We have to use truth and righteousness in order to win the game in a good way, because life is a game. It's a fun game we can play against ourselves about our old habits of thinking and behaving, so that we can have different experiences in life. You can learn more at thisismyonelife.com. There's also links on my social media at gmarkphillips, but essentially it's a system. It's not a course. It's a guide and a system based on ideas from Neville Goddard, based on many ideas from people like Ernest Holmes, Catherine Ponder. The Bible is a huge influence, of course, because that is like the key, way to live a life and play the game. And again, we want to live the life that God intended for us. We want to do the things God wants us to do, right? Because He knows us the best. We sometimes don't know ourselves, and this is when you don't know yourself, you may get off on a different path and get lost. This is why people who come back to God are like, I'm so happy and grateful that I came back to God, through God's grace, that I found God again, and I'm back on the path, and I'm more whole and I'm whole and complete again, right? I'm not caught up in the lies and deception of any of the myriad of different pitfalls in the world that the beast system has created in order to distract people. They want to distract people for their whole lives. But again, this is myonelife.com. Check it out. Let me know what you think. Thanks for listening. I appreciate you, and I will talk to you in the next one. Have an awesome day. All the best, health, wealth, and success. Bye-bye.